Our channel, in case you hadn't noticed, focuses on cleaner, greener, safer, smarter and more equitable forms of transportation. We are not, as some of you like to assert in the comments, communists. Although we are, I'll quite happily admit, quite happy to advocate for a transportation future that's a little more socialist. You know, things like ensuring everyone has access to affordable public transit that's clean, reliable and operated for the benefit of a country or city's citizens, rather than venture capitalists and Wall Street elites. And if you're someone who believes that communism and socialism is one and the same thing, I think you probably should go and watch some Philosophy Tube with the lovely Abigail Thorne to learn the difference. Because there is a difference. Although, if you do have a problem with myself and Kate, you might also have a problem with Abigail, if you know what I mean. Just saying. Part of our remit is to not only cover the latest new vehicles to hit the market, but to advocate for and educate people on how to transition their own transportation towards a more sustainable future. And let's face it, in order for us all to transition to a cleaner future, we need all kinds of transportation choices at all kinds of price points. After all, we've been trying that 1% thing for a while, and it hasn't really worked well, has it? In the last few weeks, I've recommended some electric vehicles that are easier to own used thanks to a pretty good after-sales support network, both official and unofficial. I've talked about who I think is to blame for the gatekeeping in the EV world when it comes to affordable repairs. And today, I'm going to talk about a subject we see a lot in the comments section: trickle-down EV ownership. Whenever we make a new video about cars coming to market and we mention sticker prices, we inevitably point out that a vehicle is beyond the price point of the majority of the population. And while there are a fair few commenters who will aggressively argue that because a new vehicle is below the average new price of cars sold in the last year or so, it's affordable, they're wrong, because as we've also noted, only a small proportion of car buyers buy new, and as wage disparity grows and the cost of living increases at a faster rate than minimum wage earners get a pay rise, the number of people who can afford to buy a new car without getting into subprime auto loan territory is getting smaller and smaller. No, don't worry. We're not going to go into subprime auto loans today because that is an entire video in itself. And if you do want us to do a video on the things to avoid when buying new EVs on finance, just let us know in the comments. If you're fortunate enough to have a credit score that's half decent and the income that allows you to be able to afford that brand new loan for your brand new EV, good for you. But more and more people are finding that buying used is the easier, smarter, and more affordable choice. And like combustion engine vehicle car owners before them, EV owners that buy used get to benefit from the fact that the first owner most likely dealt with the lion's share of the depreciation the moment they drove the car off the lot. But one thing we often hear in the comments section is that those who can't afford to buy new just need to be patient and wait for that new hotness to go through a few owners and a decade of ownership before they then themselves take over ownership of said vehicle, often 2 or 3 owners down the line. It's a trickle-down model, and many of you argue that it's the only way that EVs will become affordable and hit the marketplace. Some of you also make disparaging remarks about people who can't afford to buy a new EV, and make some pretty heinous generalizations about said groups of people. If that's you, please don't. Trickle-down car ownership has essentially worked for decades. As a car gets older, the income bracket of the people driving them drops. And the really smart buyers, well, they go for the really old but reasonably cheap luxury or premium models that tend to be built with a longer lifespan in mind. It is why, for example, you still see 1980s and 1990s Volvos and Mercedes-Benz driving around in half-decent condition when comparably aged models from far more affordable brands have long since gone to the compactor in the sky. Except, in the EV world, trickle-down ownership doesn't work the same, and I'm going to explain why. First, as I explained in this video, link in the description, there is some significant repair gatekeeping when it comes to after-warranty and after-sales EV repairs. Automakers prefer their official dealerships do official sanctioned repairs, which can often be very costly. That's fine if you can afford it, but if you can't, the chances are you either don't get the repair done properly, or you just ignore the problem and drive your vehicle until it stops working. This results in a higher number of vehicles being literally driven into the ground at a far younger age than you might expect for an internal combustion engine vehicle, and owners, often second or third down the line, decide to just drive their cars until they die rather than repair whatever niggling problems exist. And that leaves you with 4 groups of older EV owners. Those who can afford the repair bill from the dealership and pay through the nose to fix what's wrong in order to keep their car on the road and functioning properly, which is what I did recently with our Chevrolet Bolt EV when its air conditioning system died. You then have those who try and get their vehicle repaired by an independent garage and either luck out and save a huge bunch of money to keep their prized EV on the road, or completely miss out and find that their car will never be the same again. And then you have the group who are smart enough and motivated enough and have enough spare time to fix the car themselves, often made possible because they have their own repair equipment already, scads of knowledge, and probably a second vehicle that they can drive while they fix their broken EV over a few weekends or evenings. Here's the thing though, if you're in one of those categories, you're probably the minority of used EV owners. The majority will probably just find the prospect of paying for a repair impossibly scary. This happened to someone here at the channel. When M's Chevrolet Volt, that's Volt with a V, started causing issues, their only saviour was the fact that they had an extended warranty that just literally expired just after a problem that their car had began. Without that, they likely couldn't have afforded the repair bill and would have been up a certain creek without a certain paddle. If you're in that latter category, you're stuck. EVs may have fewer components that can fail than an internal combustion engine vehicle, but when things do fail, they can often cost more to fix. And if you're just about coping with paying for the monthly finance fee, the chances are you're not going to have a few thousand in the bank to be able to spend on fixing your car. And at that point, your choices are either to sell it on and find another EV, or put yourself further into debt to keep your EV dream alive. Or find that rare person who can help you fix it for less. Or indeed, find yourself going back to suck, squeeze, bang, blow. Of course, at this point, I would be incredibly disingenuous to pretend that people with internal combustion engine vehicles have no problems when it comes to repair bills for older, used cars, especially with the newer, older cars, if that makes sense, which can be pretty expensive to replace if something happens that requires you to get a brand new engine or have some significant reprogramming done. But the difference is that, for the most part, there is a much wider parts homogeneity between different vehicles and more examples of vehicles whose parts fit your car. Sure, you may not be able to buy a brand new engine for your old busted Chevy Blazer, but you can probably find an engine from a lightly loved one that was written off by the insurance company after a rear-end collision for far less than you'd need to spend on finding a new motor, battery pack or power electronics system for your EV that was produced in fewer numbers and has fewer parts, homogeneity between different models from the same manufacturer. And this is frustrating, extremely frustrating, because on paper EVs are cheaper and they are easier to maintain than comparable ICE vehicles, as long as all the major components carry on working, which for many EVs they do, without a problem. But this is all only true when gatekeeping of parts and repairs doesn't take place, and right now, it is, as I said in that video I linked to earlier. As I'm learning myself with my new-to-me Vectrix VX1, a maxi scooter EV from 15 years ago that was built with a nickel metal hydride battery pack, it is possible to keep my older EV on the road for many, many years, as long as you have access to the right parts and the right repair knowledge to enable you to do so. And in my case, luckily, the VX1 has been pretty well supported by enthusiasts. And incredibly, you can even build replacement battery packs using commonly available components and just a little bit of technical know-how. But most people don't have that knowledge base, or indeed the time or the motivation to learn. And with automakers quickly dropping older EV models in preference to the new hotness, and many parts on cars less than a decade old becoming difficult to source, thanks in part to the incredible innovation in the EV industry, we are fast approaching throwaway EV mentality. You keep the car until its battery pack dies, which, by the way, should be a good 10 to 15 years or more, and keep your fingers crossed that nothing else goes wrong. But in EVs, it's generally not the battery pack that dies. It's the contactors, or the computer system, or the thermistors in the battery pack. And while that vehicle is less likely to need repairs, you end up with something of a Russian roulette of EV ownership. It costs less to run, it costs less to keep on the road than a regular car, and it can save you a huge amount of money. But if and when things go wrong, it's usually not cheap, even if the thing that needs fixing is actually a relatively easy or cheap fix. Go on, just ask M about the thermistors in the battery pack of their Volt. Go on, do it. I dare you. And ask how most garages in the area wouldn't go anywhere near the battery pack in order to open it up and replace what amounts to literally a few dollars of readily available electronics components in order to fix the niggling temperature errors their car keeps randomly throwing. So let's talk about the concept of trickle-down EV ownership. The concept that more affordable EVs aren't needed because low-income folks will just get a chance to buy an EV further down the line when it's 8 to 10 years old. That doesn't work. At least, not right now. Not with the current restrictions in place. And frankly, in case you didn't hear, anthropogenic climate change and the effects of it aren't just something that affects one socioeconomic group. It affects everyone, and everyone needs to have the tools and equipment they need to be able to tackle this head on. Are there solutions? Mercifully, yes. Some of it is legislative. Mandate automakers support EVs longer than they are currently required to. Make EV battery packs more modular and easier to repair by third-party independent garages and knowledgeable owners. And when a vehicle ends production, encourage automakers to make the parts diagrams and specs available to third-party manufacturers so that they can more readily facilitate available spares and parts, just as we have had for internal combustion engine vehicles for years. Oh, and make software tools for EVs readily available for everyone to use. Don't hide them behind a high-cost paywall and make them only work with a particular adapter that you have to pay literally hundreds of dollars to buy. I have 3 different EVs. And I have 3 different onboard diagnostic adapters, all official, and none of them were cheap. Each does essentially the same thing, allow the computer to talk to my car, but each only works for their specific approved EV with the specific approved software that that EV has. It is ridiculous. So yeah, right now Trickle Down EV ownership works in theory, but not in practice. And until we have better parts availability, more repair options, and more transparent pricing structure, it won't. And for now, that means we need more affordable EVs coming to market. If owning older EVs is more complicated and riskier than it should be into the car's second decade of life, then we need lower sticker prices to start with, so that EVs get within the affordability price point for more people sooner, when those vehicles are more reliable and less likely to go wrong. Thanks for joining me today, and if you've got thoughts, make sure you leave them below in our Discord chat room, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They are some of the more than 1,500 people who help fund this channel through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and making sure that we can be 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. There's a range of different tiers you can sign up for as little as $1 a month, or if you pay yearly, just under $11 a year. A huge welcome to our newest supporters: AF Money, Sean Instal, Robin Miglia, Jason Moore, Logan A. Rossignol, Michael Bramall, Tanya's Enel, David McConnell, Dennis Lyon, James Cardelli, Jason Reisner, and Bennett Yee. Thanks for all becoming part of the TE crew. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have an old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at, address also below. And if you're in need of some swag, you can find our swag store in the down below as well. We've got some great content coming up, so make sure you've subscribed on PeerTube or YouTube, and we'll see you soon. Don't forget we make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And if you want more, the mighty algorithm thinks you'll enjoy this video. But we also think that this one is well worth a look. See you soon, and as always, keep evolving.